My name is Emily, a certified public accountant. While other women keep their marriages warm with good meals, I hold my family together with the transparency of numbers. People like to say love is blind, but for me, financial statements never lie. My husband, the man I trusted with our family's entire investment side for the past 3 years, always prided himself on being a shark in the financial markets. But this morning, the balance sheet of this marriage officially collapsed. The clock read 6:45 a.m. I sat at the dining table quietly watching my husband stand in front of the big mirror. He was tying an expensive silk tie, grooming every strand of hair with care, radiating the smug confidence of a powerful bank executive. Glancing at his phone, he said quickly, "The market's really volatile this morning, babe. I have to get to the office early for a meeting about that tech group merger. I'll be home late tonight. Don't wait for dinner." My husband always knew how to use big, impressive terms to create the perfect cover. But this morning, something felt off. I glanced at his leather briefcase. It looked too light, too flat. Nothing like the briefcase of someone carrying a stack of important contract documents. I gave a small smile, eyes never leaving my laptop screen. "Okay. Remember to eat lunch. Oh, has the year-end bonus come in yet? We need to finish paying off the home loan." He paused for a second, then laughed it off. "Soon. The CEO just praised me as the top employee of the quarter. Relax, sweetheart." He kissed my forehead in a hurry and walked out the door. The engine of the luxury car growled and faded away. He played the role of a successful husband very well. At 9:30 a.m., while I was working from home to handle a client's books, my personal phone suddenly vibrated. A bank alert popped up on the screen and my heart dropped a beat. "Alert. Your credit card just completed a cash withdrawal transaction of $2,000 at an ATM, Sky High Casino Resort." A $2,000 cash advance with predatory interest? But more important was the location, Sky High Casino. That place was a 45-minute drive from downtown. My husband said he was in a meeting at the office in the financial district. I called him. It rang 3 times and went to voicemail. I told myself to stay calm and think logically. Maybe he was entertaining a VIP client there? But pulling cash from his wife's personal credit card to entertain clients was absurd. The company would never reimburse that. I decided to call my husband's company directly. I knew the receptionist's extension by heart. "Hi, I'm the wife of Mark Reynolds, Wealth Management. His phone has no signal, and I have something urgent I need to pass along." The line went silent for about 5 seconds, with only the clacking of keys. Then the receptionist hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure you're looking for Mark Reynolds?" "Yes. Is there a problem?" "Ma'am, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Your husband doesn't work here anymore." The world around me seemed to stop spinning. A cold chill ran down my spine, but my hand stayed locked on the phone. My voice was frighteningly calm. "Can you check again? He still goes to work every morning. HR records clearly state Mr. Reynolds's employment was terminated on May 15th. That was 6 months ago, ma'am. And the reason noted here is termination for serious disciplinary violations." I hung up. 6 months. 180 days. Every morning my husband put on a suit, grabbed a briefcase, kissed me, and said he was going to work to make money. In reality, he was unemployed. And in finance, terminated for violations usually means one thing: fraud or embezzlement. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I'm an accountant. When I find an error, I don't use emotion. I investigate. I opened my laptop and logged into every joint bank account. The numbers on the screen hit me like a slap. My credit score had dropped to 520. Terrible. 6 months ago, it was 800, the perfect score. I scrolled down to the details of newly opened accounts. An unsecured personal loan for $50,000. 2 credit cards maxed out for a total of $35,000. All opened under my name or our joint name. He had forged my electronic signature. The identity thief was lying right there in my bed. I opened a new Excel spreadsheet and named the file Audit Husband's Debt. I started downloading every statement from the past 6 months. The spending categories showed up crystal clear: casino, poker club, nonstop cash withdrawals, and luxury car rentals to pretend he was still rich. Turns out, my husband's office was a casino. His co-workers were debtors, and his salary was borrowed money from my credit cards. My phone buzzed with another message. My husband texted, "Just got out of the meeting, babe. I'm wiped, but we closed a great deal. Tonight I'm bringing home wine to celebrate." I stared at that shameless text, then at the Excel sheet on my screen glowing red with debt. Fine. You want to celebrate? I'd prepare the most unforgettable party of your life. But the main course wouldn't be wine. The main course would be evidence of a crime. Before I flipped the cards face up, I needed to see his office with my own eyes. I needed a sharp photo as evidence in court. I picked up my phone and found the number of a private investigator I'd worked with before. The hunt began. After that fateful phone call, I didn't rush to my husband's former company to make a scene. That's what people do when emotion overrides reason. I'm an accounting professional, and I understand that in every legal war, whoever holds the evidence wins. I called a reputable private investigator that my office often hired to investigate insurance fraud. The assignment was simple: follow my husband from 7:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m. I want to know exactly where he goes, who he meets, and most importantly, I need clear photos. By noon, the first photos arrived on my phone. They were so sharp it hurt. In the photos, my husband's car wasn't parked anywhere near the bustling financial district. It was down in the underground garage of a shabby suburban mall. The next shot showed my husband, the man who'd just walked out of the house in a crisp suit, sitting in the car, changing clothes. He took off the white dress shirt, pulled on an old t-shirt, and yanked a baseball cap low to cover half his face. He didn't look like a bank executive at all. He looked like an addict hiding. The last photo caught him stepping through the doors of Sky High Casino. His face was lit up with that jittery, hungry excitement, the look of someone who believes luck is finally about to smile on him after a streak of losses. I turned off my phone, took a deep breath, and went back to my real work: auditing cash flow. If he'd been unemployed for 6 months, then where were the living expenses, the bank interest, and even the gambling money coming from? I started checking the mailbox out front. For months, he'd always volunteered to get the mail. Now I understood why. He'd been trying to make overdue notices disappear. I logged into the tax and social security systems. With my professional skills, it wasn't hard to trace unusual financial activity. A horrifying financial picture slowly came into focus. My husband wasn't just spending recklessly, he had stolen my identity. I found 3 new credit card applications submitted online, all using my social security number. The electronic signature was a clumsy copy of my real signature, taken from paperwork from our home purchase. The total limit across those 3 cards was $60,000. And right now, the available balance on all 3 was 0. And it didn't stop there. I found a high-interest, short-term loan secured against my car, the car I bought with my savings before we got married. All told, my successful husband had turned me into a debtor for nearly $150,000 in just half a year. $150,000 burned up on casinos, lottery tickets, and shallow indulgences to keep his glossy facade alive. 6:30 p.m., The familiar sound of his car echoed in the garage. I quickly closed every browser tab, shut my laptop, and sat on the sofa, picking up a magazine to pretend to read. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, from disgust. The door opened. My husband walked in. He'd changed back into the suit from the morning, but I could still smell cold cigarette smoke clinging to the fabric. The unmistakable casino smell that expensive cologne can't hide. "Hey, babe," he said brightly, his face glowing like he'd just come home victorious. Today was insane. I had to spar with the other side's lawyers for 4 straight hours. I looked up and gave a small smile. That sounds exhausting. So what happened? Of course we won big. He laughed, set the briefcase down, and held out a fancy shopping bag with a high-end fashion logo. And this is the reward for the most patient wife in the world. I took the bag. Inside was a designer leather handbag I'd complimented a few months earlier. It cost around $3,500. "Where did you get the money for this?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound surprised. "Project bonus." He winked, looking proud. "I told you, my boss really values me. You deserve the best." Right then, my phone buzzed lightly in my pocket. I checked it discreetly. A bank transaction alert. Your card ending in 4490 was charged $3,500 at luxury fashion boutique. He used a credit card he'd opened by impersonating me, spent my money to buy me a gift, and took credit for it. The audacity was almost laughable. I looked down at the handbag in my hands. To someone else, it would have been romantic. To me, right then, it was Exhibit 1, the physical evidence of financial fraud and identity theft. "Thank you," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "It's beautiful. I'll use it on a special occasion. Like the anniversary party this weekend?" His eyes lit up. "Awesome. You're throwing a party?" "Yes." I stood up and carefully set the bag on the table. "I'll invite your parents, and a few of your business friends too. I want everyone to share in the joy of your success." My husband didn't suspect a thing. He hugged me tight and whispered hollow words of love. He didn't know I wasn't planning a party. I was planning a public courtroom, and the indictment was already drafted in my head. I spent all day Saturday preparing. Not preparing food. I'd hired a professional catering service. I spent my time preparing the most important presentation of my career. I edited the slides with the same care I used when reporting to a major corporation's board. Precise numbers, clear visuals, and a logic chain no one could deny. 7 p.m. guests started arriving in full. My in-laws walked in first. My mother-in-law grabbed my hand and gushed. "You're such an amazing daughter-in-law. Mark said he's been killing it this year, even got a new car. You're so lucky you married him." I smiled and poured her tea. "Yes, ma'am. Tonight I'll show everyone exactly how hard he's been working." Next came 3 of Mark's old college friends, all in finance. They were loud, cheerful, and impressed by the wealth management director title my husband wore like armor. Mark was the happiest one there. He wore his best suit, held a glass of red wine, and strutted around the living room like a king. He rambled about billion-dollar mergers, about market swings he'd predicted down to the tick. I stood in the corner and watched the performance. He acted so well that if I hadn't been holding a stack of bank statements, I might have believed him myself. 8:30 p.m. Dinner was over. Time for dessert. "Everyone," I said, tapping a silver spoon gently against a wine glass to get their attention. "Before we have cake, I have a surprise gift for Mark. He's always talking about work, but he's so modest about his achievements. So I put together a little recap for all of you to admire." Mark looked at me, surprised, but his eyes sparkled with pride. He thought I was about to play some sweet anniversary montage. "You're so thoughtful," Mark said, wrapping an arm around my waist. I brushed his hand off gently and walked to the projector already connected to my tablet. "Please look at the screen." I pressed the button. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. Slide 1. Termination notice. On the screen wasn't a wedding photo. It was a crisp scan of the letter from HR at Mark's former company. The bold title read, "Termination of Employment. Reason: violation of financial rules and embezzlement. Signature date: 6 months ago." The entire room went dead silent. Laughter and chatter snapped off. My mother-in-law squinted, trying to read the text on the screen. "What is this?" one of Mark's friends muttered. Mark went pale. He stammered and started toward me. "Emily, what the hell are you doing? Turn that off. This is a mistake." "Sit down," I snapped, my hard voice stopping him in place. "I'm not finished." I clicked to the next slide. Slide 2. The real workplace. 3 photos appeared in sequence. Photo 1. Mark changing clothes in a shabby parking garage. Photo 2. Mark at a poker table, eyes bloodshot, surrounded by piles of chips. Photo 3. Mark withdrawing cash at the casino ATM. "This is where you go every day at 7 a.m., I said, cold as if I were reading an audit report. "There's no investment bank. There's only Sky High Casino." My father-in-law shot to his feet, face red. "Mark, what is this?" Mark trembled, sweat pouring off him. "Dad, let me explain. Emily's misunderstanding. She's gone crazy." I clicked to the final slide. Slide 3. Family Financial Report. A bar chart appeared. Bright red. Y-axis, debt. X-axis, the past 6 months. Total debt as of today, $148,500. I pointed to the huge number on the screen. Every cent of it was borrowed under my name by forging signatures and stealing my identity. "The handbag you gave me yesterday? Paid with my credit card? Tonight's dinner party? Also borrowed under my name." I turned and looked Mark straight in the eye. By then, he'd completely collapsed into his chair. "You're not an investor, Mark. You're a fraud. You don't invest in stocks. You invest in lies, and your returns are negative." My mother-in-law clutched her chest and burst into sobs. My father-in-law stared at his son with absolute disappointment. Mark's friends looked miserable and began standing up to leave. The party had ended in the worst possible way. Mark looked up at me, his eyes shifting from fear to fury. He hissed, "You humiliated me in front of everyone? Who do you think you are? You're my wife. You're supposed to help me pay it back, not air my dirty laundry." I closed the tablet and gave a flat, thin smile. I did my job as an accountant, full financial transparency. And as for paying it back, "Mark, I think you should save your energy for explaining to the next guests." "Next guests?" Mark asked, stunned. The doorbell rang before the words even settled. This time, it wasn't a polite chime. It was firm, authoritative pounding. The wail of police sirens floated in from the street, cutting through the glass and tearing open the suffocating silence in the living room. The door swung open. 2 police officers stepped inside, followed by the private investigator I'd hired. The air in the living room thickened. The smell of red wine and expensive perfume seemed to get swallowed by the cold gleam of the handcuffs hanging at an officer's hip. "Who is Mark Reynolds?" one officer asked, voice sharp. Mark sprang up, his chair slamming to the floor. His face drained of color, and his shaking hands gripped the edge of the dining table. I am. But what is this? You've got the wrong house, right?" he stammered, eyes darting for an escape route. "Mark Reynolds, you are under arrest on suspicion of identity theft, credit card fraud, and Level 1 financial document forgery." The officer stepped in, pulled Mark's arms behind his back. Metal clicked together with a dry snap. The cuffs locked around his wrists. "Dad! Mom! Do something!" Mark yelled, turning to his parents. "Emily's crazy. She's framing me. I'm your son." My mother-in-law choked on a sob and tried to rush forward. But my father-in-law held her back. He'd been in business a long time. He understood exactly what this meant. When the police show up with an arrest order, it's no longer a family argument. It's criminal. I walked forward calmly, holding a thick binder of documents I'd prepared since morning. "Officer," I said clearly, "this is all the evidence. Forensic analysis of the forged signature, bank statements matched to the times he was at the casino, and the computer IP access history from when he secretly opened credit cards under my name. I've flagged and categorized each item." The officer took the binder, flipped through a few pages, then looked at me with surprise mixed with respect. "You prepared this thoroughly. Usually it takes us a month to gather this much." "I'm an accountant," I replied bluntly. "I like precision." Mark stared at me, his expression shifting from pleading to pure hatred. "Emily, why? Just because of some debt? We're married. You're sending your husband to prison over money?" I looked him straight in the eye without flinching. "Not because of money, Mark. Because of the lies. You turned me into a debtor, a victim, inside my own home. You didn't borrow from me. You stole from me. And most importantly," I leaned in close to his ear, whispering just loud enough for him to hear, "you think I'm going to spend my life savings paying off your gambling debt? Not a chance. When you're convicted of fraud, by law these debts are classified as caused by criminal conduct. I'll be released from responsibility for repayment. This is the only way to protect my financial future." Mark froze. He'd never expected a move like this. He thought I'd cry, scream, and eventually grit my teeth and pay his debts because we were married. He'd underestimated the risk calculation of someone who works in finance. "Let's go," the officer ordered. They escorted Mark to the door. He kept his head down, stumbling past the business friends who'd just been raising glasses to him, now staring at him like he was diseased. The police car's siren blared as it sped into the night, carrying away the man I once called my husband. In the living room, my in-laws sank onto the sofa. My mother-in-law cried without sound. My father-in-law looked at me, his voice shaking. "Emily, did you really have to take it this far? He is, after all." "Dad?" I cut him off, respectful but firm. "I'm sorry you had to see this, but I can't let him drag me into the mud with him. The debt is nearly $150,000 and the interest keeps compounding every day. If you want to save your son, you can hire a lawyer for him. But me, I have to save myself." I turned away and started clearing the half-finished wine glasses off the table. The party was over, and so was this marriage. Tomorrow would be a busy day. I still had to work with my lawyer on a unilateral divorce filing and submit documentation to the bank to clear the bad debt. But tonight, for the first time in 6 months, I would sleep without worrying about debt collection texts at midnight. 3 months later, I stepped out of the city courthouse and took a deep breath of freedom. The sky was bright blue today, the complete opposite of the gloom inside the courtroom moments ago. The trial moved faster than I expected. With the airtight evidence I provided, from bank statements and GPS location data to personal computer records, Mark's lawyer had no real room to defend him. Mark had to bow his head and plead guilty, hoping for a lighter sentence. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison for financial fraud, identity theft, and document forgery. The moment the police led Mark away, he looked back at me one last time. No longer the smug husband in designer suits, no longer the bank director bragging nonstop about million-dollar deals. In front of me was only an inmate in a baggy orange uniform, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow with desperation. I didn't feel triumphant, and I didn't feel sorry. I felt relieved, like finally writing off a toxic, uncollectible debt. The following week was a grind of nonstop work with banks and credit institutions. I sat across from the risk director at the credit card bank, the man who used to call me every day demanding payment. I placed the court judgment on the table and slid it toward him. "Sir," I said evenly, "the court has confirmed that every transaction over the past 6 months was the result of fraud and identity impersonation. Under the Fair Credit Act, I'm requesting that the bank remove these debts from my record and restore my credit score." He reviewed the paperwork carefully, nodded, and typed a few commands into his computer. "The documentation is valid. We apologize for the inconvenience this has caused you. The $148,500 balance will be removed from your account immediately. Your credit score will be updated within 30 days. I watched the debt number disappear on the screen. The feeling was more satisfying than any luxury vacation. I had my identity back, my financial credibility back. That was the most valuable asset an accountant can have. As for the house, I decided to sell it. Too many false memories haunted those four walls. With the real estate market rising, I sold it for a solid profit. After paying off the mortgage, I walked away with a good chunk of cash, capital that belonged to me alone. I rented a smaller, upscale condo in the city center, close to work. A new space, minimal, clean, and most importantly, completely transparent. On my first night in the new place, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city lights glittering below. In my hand was a glass of wine, a bottle I bought with my own money, my own card. I opened my phone and checked my banking app one last time that day. Credit card balance, $0. Credit score, 780, still climbing. Status, free. I smiled, remembering the image of Mark in his inmate uniform that morning. My ex-husband always wanted to be remembered as someone important, a Wall Street finance kingpin. He played the director role well for 6 straight months, but unfortunately for him, the curtain had fallen. His next role would last 5 years, with no audience, no applause. The roll called, inmate number 4820.